A deacon wears one hat, whereas an elder may be an older man, an overseer, someone who has authority. A deacon wears one hat, servant. And as a servant, his task is extremely important. As we saw from Romans chapter 12, whatever God has blessed us with, we are to use it in proportion to our faith and to know who we are, what we've been blessed with, and how to use that. And as we look at amongst ourselves for those who may be deacons, that's what we're looking for. Those men who know who they are, know what they're able to do, and are willing to make themselves available at a moment's notice to fulfill that need. And so those are some of the things we'll be looking at throughout the lesson this morning. So if you're ready for your 3 words, let's see the notebooks this morning. All right, very good. 3 words this morning: obedient, diligent, and optimistic. Those are going to especially be important as we get to the concluding thoughts of the lesson this morning, because those are some of the 3 areas where I personally feel are most needed when we consider deacons within this congregation. And I think we can learn great lessons from someone who was actually called a servant, and that is Joshua, as we go forward in that. So obedient, diligent, and optimistic. We'll have more to say along those lines as we get there. And so Charlie sent out an email for the eldership a few weeks ago, and just to kind of go over where we're at in that process. We are now in this process where starting today, after this lesson, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to allow for people to submit names that they would like to be considered as deacons of the congregation. After those names are submitted, the elders will look at those names. We'll consider the men who have been listed. There may be some things that we know that others do not, that we may have to modify some things, to remove some names, just not because of sin. We're not talking about that necessarily, but just because of things that we may know that the congregation may not be aware of. There also may be men who have already approached us who said whether or not they do or do not want to be considered for such a task. But in every case, we will be talking to those men, whether or not they're qualified or not, about the fact that there were those who put forth their names. We'll also be making sure that after that list is pretty much finalized, not finalized, but preliminarily finalized, I guess you could say, we'll present those names to the congregation, and the congregation will have about 30 days or so to go to those men, to talk to them about their qualifications, to address any concerns you may have. And during the midst of that, if there's something that cannot be resolved, make sure you bring that to us as the eldership so that we may talk to you about those things and talk with you about those things. Also, please consider this, that this is not an opportunity to be confrontational with someone, and that's not what this process is supposed to be. But it is something that should help both of you in that process to grow. For that individual, if their name has been put forward by a significant number of the congregation who believes they are qualified to be a deacon, and someone comes to them with a concern or care about them, that individual whose name was put forward should take that as it should be intended to be delivered, and that is so that they may grow and understand that they are not in every situation showing themselves to be of the kind of character that this particular person thinks they may be. It also is a good opportunity for that person who goes to them to be able to talk to another brother about some concerns that they have in a way that promotes growth and unity and coming to common ground on what God would have us all to be. So use it as the opportunity to grow and not something to become confrontational about. And then at the end of that 30 days, if we do have men who meet those qualifications, who have the confidence of the congregation and its eldership, then we'll put those men in and install them as being deacons and put them to the work of doing so. And so what we also need to understand is this, that when we talk about the needs of deacons and appoint selected men to be deacons, there are needs that this congregation has. First and foremost, every congregation of the Lord's people has as its primary mission to save the lost and to strengthen its flock. And the deacon's work falls in line with that. The deacon's work is a service for proven and tested men, that these men are ready servants to do whatever is necessary to fulfill that mission. And so no matter what that task is, it has a spiritual application that is extremely serious when it comes to either saving or preserving the souls of God's people. It is not just about doing physical tasks, but it's the reason behind the physical tasks that may need to be done. And so they're going to render whatever service is necessary to make sure that the eldership is not, as from Acts chapter 6, waiting on tables. There are tasks that are important, but it's different than the tasks that the eldership should be engaged in. And there are, as I've told you in the very first lesson, there are tasks that the eldership now are doing that have not taxed us to the limit. However, if we continue on this path, we can create for ourselves various problems and situations that may call for some creativity in ways that we are not wanting to do. And that means that we would be setting aside the tasks that we are primarily given, that we might have to wait on tables. And that is not something that we're supposed to be about doing in the Lord's church. And so it's important that each of us have a good understanding of the needs of the congregation. And so you may have already saw this slide when I sent it out this morning. I've got 6 boxes up here, and these are not all inclusive. There's a lot of other tasks that are given when we think about what is necessary just for us to function from week to week as a congregation of the Lord's people. And just here at Custer Road, this is just a small sampling of some of the things that need to be done. There's areas like communication and technology that have things like the email, the directory, the website, YouTube, and live streaming. There are numerous people, not just from our number who may be sick, but even in other places that watch us live stream, either maybe because they're homebound, or maybe they're still in some area where they're not permitted, such as in foreign countries, from meeting. Things like the projectors and the microphones and all things such as that. You think about the worship services, and it's not just getting a duty roster together, which may be a one time a month type of thing, which is involved in and of itself, but also when we come here to worship, to make sure the people who are on the duty roster are actually here to fulfill their role that particular day. And you've heard the phrase herding cats before, I'm sure. And when people are showing up 2 and 3 minutes prior to start time, that becomes especially difficult. So here's something as a congregation we can help our deacons out, is if you know you have a duty, if you know you have a task, make sure you show up a little bit earlier. It makes their job a lot easier. And there are a lot of men who are even helping them out when it comes to those types of things. Teachers and resources and scheduling classes and making sure we just have classrooms that are available and that they're portioned out appropriately, not just for classes themselves, but for the size of the classes. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but we have a tremendous and been blessed with a tremendous amount of young people and children. We need to not only have a class for them to go in, but a classroom that's big enough for them to go in. And the classrooms are different sizes. Ordering materials, scheduling those who are actually going to be teaching, keeping up with the kids' Bible drill, and things like this. A lot of our members are taken care of, but we don't necessarily have deacons who are involved in that directly. And some of those things, the eldership are more overseeing those things. Again, we're not being taxed to the limit yet, but these are things that continue to be a need within the congregation. Finances. I mean, I only put just a small list of the things involved in finances in keeping up with all that needs to be kept up there, not just in counting the contribution and logging it in, but also taking care of taxes and insurance and fire alarms and everything else that goes along with that in the form of payments. I like getting a paycheck, so somebody needs to write that one. You know, those types of things are very important, especially to me. And so when you think about like maintenance and the grounds, I mean, just having a place to come into that's clean, that's well kept, outside, that we're being a good steward, again, of what God has blessed us with. On and on and on you go through this. And then you come to something like benevolence and care. If all of our deacons are consumed with all those other areas, the deacons are robbed of the opportunities for something that is very fulfilling on an extremely personal level when it comes to benevolence and care, and being greeters and welcoming people to the assemblies and making sure visitors have a card and have a place to sit, to make sure that the widows or those who are homebound in the congregation are sought after, that if they need a ride to services, that there's someone that they know they can call to get that ride to services, to know that there is so much good that can be done that is very, very self-fulfilling that they may not even be able to take part in because of the other duties that are there. So again, I did it in 6 boxes for a reason. Right now we have 6 deacons. When I first came here, there were 10, and then we had 11 when Emmett was an elder. He stepped down from an elder and became a deacon. We had 11. And since then we have, because of death or moving and things such as that, now we're down to 6. If you had one man in each one of those boxes, there's still too much for one man to be tasked with. There's no redundancy. There's no what if he's sick. There's no what if he's out of town. There's no what if his job. There's no what if to take care of that. Now, brethren, I've got to commend you. We have done so very well in making sure that these things are taken care of, and that's because of the willingness of so many to step up to the task. But there's something that I do want us to consider, and this is something that I believe that we're in the midst of going through right now. We have a very close-knit group, and that is one of the greatest blessings that we have, to be considered such a close family. But one of the consequences that may go along with that is that we may have the mindset that we are a congregation of about 50 or 75. In a congregation of 50 or 75, you may have 2 or 3 song leaders, and it's pretty easy to schedule those out. We don't have 2 or 3 song leaders. We have about 20 or 25 song leaders. We have, I think it's 16 or 18 men who are on the list to do announcements alone. We're not a congregation of 50. We're a congregation of 250. And if we have the mindset that we're a congregation of 50, there's going to be a lot of things that are not going to be taken care of. There's a lot of things that are going to slip through the cracks. There's a lot of things that's going to lend itself to descending into chaos and causing issues and problems because it gets missed. And so, yes, we have deacons who are working hard, and we have a lot of men and women who are helping them in every way they possibly can to work hard as well. And that's why things still seem to be like we're a congregation of 50 or 75. And that's why we're so close, because of that. And that's something we do not want to lose. But this is also why we need more that can step into these roles to help in managing these things. And so there is a great need that needs to be met. And there are people who are obviously willing to do so. But I also want to address, and I think this is the most important thing when it comes to the work of deacons, is to have the right attitude for it. And I think one of the best examples we can go to is in the Old Testament when we go to Exodus chapter 24. And we start thinking about this man named Joshua. In Exodus 24 and verse 13, Joshua is mentioned there, and it says in that verse that Moses arose with his assistant Joshua. And that phrase for Joshua is used numerous times as assistant, servant, someone who is there at Moses' beck and call. And remember, a deacon is one who carries forth the commands of another. Literally, the term meant to kick up the dust, which meant when he was told to do something, the dust you could see flying off of his heels as he went about doing that thing. That's the kind of man Joshua seems to be. So I thought he'd be a really good example for some of the things that we can learn. If you go back to Exodus chapter 17, one of the things that we see about Joshua, and I think is needed within deacons as well, is knowing what it means to be obedient servants. In Exodus chapter 17, and starting at verse 8, now Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, choose us some men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And so it was when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands became heavy. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. So Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. What you see is that Joshua did as he was told, and he didn't have to be micromanaged. Joshua was told to go out there, grab some guys, and get this situation taken care of. Handle the situation. That's what deacons are. They don't, and they should not be and need to be micromanaged. That if we as an eldership have chosen a deacon to oversee a task and then we have to micromanage them, we have chosen the wrong deacon for that task. It ought not be that we have to say to a deacon, get this particular thing done, and then continually have to check up to make sure that it's getting done, and then to continually have to check up on, so what has been done, why didn't you do it this way type of thing. It's a matter of to be trusted, tested, and proven that they're going to be able to take the task and get it done. The way that we're going to know whether or not our deacons are doing their job is when they put the rest of all of us to work. If the deacons are coming to you and saying, I need somebody to help with this, I need someone to help with this, come with me, let's take care of this situation, that's when a deacon's doing his job. It's not the deacon himself who does everything, but he'll grab some guys and he'll handle the situation. That's what a deacon is supposed to be about doing. We also see with him that he wasn't argumentative. He didn't tell Moses all the reasons why he shouldn't be chosen or why didn't you choose someone else. He also didn't say to Moses, so you want me to go down here and fight and you're just going to go up there and sit on this rock? I think I'd like to sit on the rock. I could hold up your hands. It doesn't need to be Aaron and Hur. No, he did the work. When the eldership and the congregation needs something done, and the eldership give directions for something that needs to be done, it needs to be done, and we don't need to be criticized for why we chose that particular individual or why we're not the ones who are doing the work. There's a reason behind it. Moses was where Moses was supposed to be. There's a phrase that you may have heard before, that deaconships can sink elderships. And it's a play on words to let you know that when elders and deacons are not performing the roles that they should, the way that they should, they're going to destroy one another. And there's a lot of problems that can be caused from that. And what a lot of congregations unfortunately do, and I have not seen this here, but this is something I have seen in the past with other congregations, and I've heard other preachers talk about it as well, is that preachers are doing the elders' job, the elders are doing the deacons' job, and the deacons really don't know what to do. That elders, they always tell elders that you're getting more than you bargained for. Well, unfortunately, sometimes deacons are getting less than what they bargained for. We need to be clear about what the task is and what the job is and what it means to be about going about that task. He was not someone who was argumentative or critical of things. Proverbs 10 says, as vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is the lazy man to those who send him. It is not a good blessing when you have a deacon who's tasked with something yet he doesn't get it done, that he doesn't know what it means to be obedient, doesn't know how to be argumentative, but he doesn't know how to be obedient. So deacons, those prospective deacons, one task that's needed of you is to be able to think in a managerial type of way of thinking, that all of us know how good it is to be able to work for someone and with someone who's easy to work with. That's what our deacons are supposed to be, and that's one of the things that we're looking for. Also, when you think about Joshua, there's another example that we can go to in Exodus chapter 33. Exodus chapter 33, in verses 7 through 11. Exodus 33 and starting at verse 7. Moses took his tent and pitched it outside the camp, far from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of meeting. And it came to pass that everyone who sought the Lord went out to the tabernacle of meeting, which was outside the camp. So it was, whenever Moses went out to the tabernacle, that all the people arose, and each man stood at his tent door and watched Moses until he had gone into the tabernacle. And it came to pass, when Moses entered the tabernacle, that the pillar of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and the Lord talked with Moses. All the people saw the pillar of the cloud standing at the tabernacle door, and all the people rose and worshiped, each man in his tent door. So the Lord spoke to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. And he, speaking of Moses, and he would return to the camp. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. So Moses would go and he would do his meeting with the Lord and speak with the Lord. And then Moses would be done and go back to the camp. But Joshua stayed there. A servant is someone who's willing to put in long hours. And going back to the first, Joshua's not saying to Moses, hey, you're going back to I'd like to go back to the camp too. No, Joshua stayed behind at the tabernacle because there was still more to be done. That was his task to do. That's what deacons are. They're willing to put in those long hours. Being a servant. And brethren, when we talk about deacons and how important the work of a deacon is, we need to not let this point slip by. Deacons put in a lot of long hours. When everyone else goes home, when the preacher goes home, when the elders go home, when all the members go home, when their own children are in the bed and daddy hasn't been there to kiss them goodnight, deacons may still be here at the building from 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I've seen that many times with them, trying to make sure things are done so that when we come in Sunday morning, no one knows the wiser about what problems we may have encountered. They're willing to put in the long hours and to do the dirty work that others may not even see, because deacons see the great value in what they've been tasked to do. They see that it's a spiritual mission that is involved. and they're going to make sure that it gets accomplished and finished. One great example in the New Testament I think of this is the man named Epaphroditus in Philippians 2, 25 through 30. And you remember that Paul is receiving these gifts from the church at Philippi. And one of the messengers of the church is even called a servant, though he may not be a deacon, we don't know that in any shape, form, or fashion, but he is called a messenger of the church. And he served Paul well in the things he did, that he put himself to the hazard. And it almost cost him his life because he got so sick in making sure that the needs of the congregation were met in fulfilling their obligation and their responsibilities toward Paul in giving that gift. That's what we're talking about. Those people who know what it takes and are not afraid to give it. That's what deacons do. And one last example from Joshua that I want us to look at is in Numbers chapter 14, verses 6 through 10. Numbers 14, verses 6 through 10. This is where they went in already and they've spied out the land. And the 10 spies come back with a negative report. Joshua and Caleb come back with a positive report. And starting at verse 6, it says that Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "The land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the Lord, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Deacons are optimistic. If there's one thing I believe that can destroy congregations, that can destroy deacons, that can destroy elders, it's pessimism and fear. That at this particular moment of time, Joshua had this can-do attitude, and he was not one who panicked. We came through a situation over the past few years with this pandemic, and it was a great blessing to have so many people who did not panic, who did not continually walk around day to day, moment by moment, week after week, giving all the different reasons why we can't or why we shouldn't. But we're always looking forward to how we keep moving forward and not stopping. Deacons do not panic. Oh no, what are we going to do now? Oh no, what about this? Oh no, what if this happens? Oh no, what if we can't, what if that fails? The Lord is with us. Period. Whether we succeed or fail is not the issue. The issue is faith. The issue is obedience. The issue is diligence. The issue is optimism. The issue is, what does it take to get this group of Christians and those who will obey the gospel in the future? How do we get all of us to heaven? And what needs to be done so that it becomes an easier transition for my brethren? That's what a deacon thinks about. And that's what a deacon does. These people, Joshua said, are our bread. Don't be afraid of them. The Lord is with us. The Lord has promised. Don't be afraid. As we sang, there's a super appropriate song. Step out of the boat. Do the work. We saw in the qualifications, those who serve well as deacons obtain for themselves a good standing and great confidence because they have the same spirit that Joshua had. We too are going to face many giant problems. They're going to come. We know that over the next hill, the next horizon, there's going to be something we're going to face. Fine. We faced things in the past. We'll face things in the future. And our deacons are going to be there to serve. They're going to be there to be like Joshua was, to let others know, don't be afraid. Keep moving forward. That's what this battle is all about. Joshua himself later becomes a leader. And it is not something where it's a prerequisite before a person can become an elder that he must first become a deacon. But it is also true that often from among the deacons, elders are often chosen. Joshua was one who, though he was the servant, the attendant to Moses, later became the leader that was chosen by God to lead the people. And God told Joshua, just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. But you be careful to observe all the things you've been commanded to do. And do not fear. Do not be afraid. I am with you. Just as I was with Moses, I will be with you. And he reminds them, have I not already told you? Be of good courage. Do not fear. That's what we're talking about. When we think about who it is that God wants to be deacons within his church, it is not a second-rate servant. It is not someone who's a groundskeeper or someone who just knows how to do audio-video stuff. But it's a person who knows how to be available, will do the task, will not be argumentative about it, will be willing to put in the long hours, will grab others to help them out with that task, and will encourage others in the work as well, so that we do not fear. So the question I'm leaving with you this morning is this one, is are there any Joshuas among us? Think if we had 6 Joshuas in charge of those 6 boxes. Joshua may still be looking for extra work to do on top of that, you would think. But brethren, we do have the spirit of Joshua among the men that we have, among the women even in this congregation that we have, in doing the tasks that they do. We have that same spirit within all of us if we tap into it and have the kind of faith that we should. God has blessed us, and now he expects us to be good stewards. So if you have any other questions about any of the things that we've talked about over the past several weeks when it comes to the qualifications, if you have concerns about any of the names that get put forward, the eldership's door is wide open. Do not hesitate to call. Do not hesitate to email or text, to get together for lunch or whatever else it may be, so that we may move forward in a way of great confidence and security. Because this congregation is growing and vibrant and strong. And no doubt those who may be appointed in the future are going to aid in continuing that growth. And so if you're subject to the invitation this morning, if you're not yet a Christian and you want to be one, if you're willing to stand before this audience this morning and say that you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, have your sins washed away in the waters of baptism because of the blood of Christ, if you're willing to rise to walk in newness of life, knowing that we will be there to help you every step of the way and that God will never forsake you, if that's your desire, we can help in any way. Please come as together we stand and sing.